If somebody would record the audio and send it to me, we can be sure to get the minutes taken care of. Appreciate it. And that's all for me.
And to answer your question, Ted, yes, Drew does have a recording going. So,
Thank you.
so the next thing would be any repeater updates. Be Chris. Anything since the camera stuff?
Trying to sit here and think. No, I don't think there's anything. Apologize. I'm driving down the road, so my brain is not 1,000% concentrating at the moment, other than where I'm going. But no, I don't think I have anything. There's actually, yeah, there are a couple of things. Did I update the new towers, the new tower that's being put in on Bradley in Mount Shasta last month? I think I didn't I?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that site has been put back on the air temporarily. It's at reduced performance, but it is running. One thing that is new that's happening is I was able to secure going on a new tower site in Roseburg. There's always been noisy coverage there, and I've been trying on and off now for a few months, and I was able to secure a tower site called Looking Glass Mountain, which is between Winston and Roseburg. It's directly above Wildlife Safari. In fact, it's actually property that Wildlife Safari owns. And we're going to be putting a VHF repeater up there to fill in all of the Roseburg, Winston, Sutherland areas where King Mountain is noisy and Scott Mountain is noisy. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Chris. Sounds awesome. So for those that haven't seen, Drew has put up the minutes from last month. So as far as old business, who took part in the CPAC on the air? I believe that was last weekend, was it not? Not hearing any takers. Other than that, sounds like most of everything. If you haven't been on, checked out some of the recordings from Microhams or the Dayton-ish events, do so. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there. So our first real upcoming thing-ish would be Field Day. So I'll hand it over to Bill and let him explain how different it's going to be this year.
Hi, everyone. Let's see. The city is not going to allow us to use the campground where we have been the last several years. It's still closed. So I figured what we would do is take advantage of the changes that ARRL has instituted this year because of the problems with the virus. So the first thing is that they allow dispersed club use. So basically, if you're going to be somewhere with the club call sign, W7PRA, you still have to work within the 1,000-foot circle. But if you want to stay at home or go somewhere else on your own and use your own call sign, you may do so. But when you submit your logs to ARRL, if you enter in Peak Radio Association as the club name, then all of your scores will not only be listed under your name, but they will also aggregate into the club score. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you're going to operate from home, ordinarily that would be a Class D station. Class D stations in the past have been unable to log contacts with other Class D stations for the contest. This year, they were allowing Class D to Class D contacts to count. So if you have a logging program that has the latest changes, that should properly score you if you contact somebody else operating a Class D. So you could be a Class C mobile if you wanted. You could be a Class B with 2 operators out in a campground somewhere. And you can all add those scores to the PRA score by including the club's name. Now, it's critical that everybody spells the club name the same. Their software, which is going to be doing this, isn't all that sophisticated. So I'm going to be putting out some documentation explaining how to do all of this. And we'll try and get that on the various email lists for anybody who wishes to be involved. What I want is anybody who wants to be involved in that aggregate score, just call me or email me and let me know, and I'll start adding up who's going to be doing what from where. The other thing is that I plan to go out to the Walton Snow Park where we normally do our 7QP contest and set up out there. And if anybody else wants to join me up there, I'll be happy to set up our usual logging network, and we can operate with the club call sign from up there. So I've got a couple nibbles for people who would like to do that. So we'll see how that works out. Olin, if you want to come up with me again, if you want to be on the motorhome with me again, I'd be happy to have you.
Okay, I'll think about it here.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions now?
No, I'm going to be out with my trailer out at South Beach State Park, camped out there, and I was going to set up a station out there. Maybe I'll hear you guys.
So you'd be a Class E out there?
Something like that. I've never done field day before. I've always gone to see somebody else do field day.
Okay, well, in the email that I'm sending out, I'm going to have as an attachment the complete ARRL field day package that has everything, all the rules, all of the hints and tricks, how to submit everything. So if you just read that thoroughly, it's fairly thick, it's 49 pages altogether. Read it and highlight the things that apply to you, and you'll do fine. Have you ever used any logging software?
No.
Okay.
I haven't been into, I've been mostly into MCOM more than anything, but I happened to be out at the park and we thought it kind of be cool. I've seen the club out in Florence too before. They had a really good setup, but I've never downloaded the software. I don't think it's that tough.
No, there are 2 main softwares that people use. There are others, but the 2 big ones are N1MM and N3FJP. N1MM is kind of a Swiss Army knife of logging software. You get one download, but then you have to go in there and configure it for the particular contest that you're using. The documentation is very thorough, but it can be kind of a fire hose to get set up. You can do everything with it. You can do rig control. You can remotely rotate antennas. You can do everything with that software, and it's all normal Windows style interface. Then there is N3FJP, the look and feel is kind of like old school VGA, Windows 3 or even pre-Windows software, but it's a little bit easier to use. Some people like it. I years ago bought a license for the club, and so that's what we've been using. But we've been using N1MM out there for 7QP. They're both excellent. If that's too much for you, too much to swallow at one chunk, then you can always do paper logging. They in the field day rules, they have a page with a field day log. You can just Xerox that, and you can add everything up on the dupe sheet and submit it by mail or even if you want, or email or through their web interface. Yeah, it's pretty easy. So it just
Well-
depends on what you want to do. If you want to use the software, Mike Shelby is our N1MM expert. I'm okay on it. And I'm pretty good with the F3 FJP. So if you have questions, by all means, you got your Elmer's right here.
Okay, great. I think I might just download it before I leave and see if I have any quirks in it, then I can reach out. So,
Set it up and play with it at home.
Yeah, set it up and play with it at home. The N1MM, that's free. There's no cost to that. If you use the F3 something
FJP.
JP, that requires a license to operate that. So you need to get a copy of the license from Bill.
Yeah, it's pretty, if you're going to be using your own call sign, then we can't use the club copy. But it's a nominal fee. You can download it, play with it, see if it's something you like, and if it's something you like, you can, it's easy enough to afford. And that, by the way, is a lifetime license, so that's good for any upgrades in the future.
okay, cool. Well, I got a few things to figure out before I take my radio out there, but I will play with it. But thanks a lot for all the info.
We're here to help.
Yep, and figure it out before you go.
I have a
Anybody else?
question. Andy here.
Yeah, Andy.
If you wish to operate a portable station outside of your home, for instance, in your backyard, but close to your home QTH, is that still a Class D from home situation?
Okay, the guys at ARRL in their FAQs, they say that, well, that's not really in the spirit of things, but if you set up portable antennas that are just for field day and you operate outside of your house, outside of your normal station, and you're using a generator or batteries, then you can be a Class E.
Thank you.
And again,
Yeah,
this year,
so-
there's no penalty for being a Class D.
Yeah, so I pulled up the rule set here so the Class A, as we normally operate, is a club or non-club group of 3 or more persons set up specifically for field day. So most of us are not going to be qualified for Alpha. Class B is 1 or 2 persons in a field day station, but no more than 2. So basically, it's the Class A with up to 2. So if you are able to set up antennas and everything specifically for field day, then you could qualify under the Class B. Class C is the mobile stations. Class D is a home station with permanent antennas, permanent location or licensed locations using commercial power. Class E is going to be the permanent location with a emergency power, which is most likely how I'll probably end up, because trying to get off work to run up to Walton may be a challenge, but we'll see. And then we've got anybody operating an AOC, you get to be a class F, but that may not be particularly viable right now. So any other questions or discussion on field day?
I had a couple of comments here. One was Scott had responded to Bill saying that he sounded interested. And then I also see that Scott and Paul were talking about the CPAC QSO party. So
I'm done if there's no other questions. And like I say, I'll be sending out the package that'll include all the contact information and the information you need to know to operate this year.
All right. So with that, upcoming events. So besides field day, the next thing that I'm aware of that might actually be happening sounds like will be Rick Rial in February and Winter Field Day. There should also be School Club Roundup in the fall and a couple other contests, but as far as the big stuff, I think we're pretty much shot on big things until 2021. Sounds like a lot of other events have been canceling. We actually just had the one of the big trade shows that the company I work for takes part in just got around to canceling their August show in Portland, and a lot of people were coming back with, why does it take so long to figure out that that's not going to happen? And they're only offering like a 40% refund for exhibitors unless you roll over till next year. So they're not winning a whole lot of friends. With that, so I think the only other thing I have is I have a friend that does professional audio video production stuff, particularly audio. And he's been kind of bored twiddling his thumbs for a few months. And so I have a bug in his ear about how would be best to set up audio for be able to mic the regular meetings when we are able to resume back at Tommy's. From an AV standpoint, setting up a camera and a screen at Tommy's is pretty easy. Miking the group meeting gets a little bit trickier with the size. And as I alluded to in my email, so depending on how well you guys have been following the regulations on establishments for reopening, there's a lot of really interesting stuff out there that makes a lot of venues very difficult to work with. Or work in, I should say. And so it's probably going to be a while before we can properly have an in-person meeting again. Because a couple of the regulations are every person has to be seated at a table. So you can't sit at a bar. They don't want people moving around from location to location. There's the 6-foot distancing, which isn't just between patrons, it is between patrons and walkways. So in theory, somebody is supposed to be able to enter an establishment, seat at a table, and the next patron that walks in should be able to walk to their table without coming within 6 feet of the person that's already there. So that ends up taking up a lot of space very quickly. I have a few friends that have work in restaurants in the Salem area, and there's some interesting stuff people are coming up with. I'm seeing a lot more sneeze guards and plexiglass between tables, at least pictures of it. And I know a few restaurants that one that I really would love to patronize more, but that's where I've been doing takeout from, because there's physically no way to get 6 feet between anybody inside the tables at their restaurants. So they are takeout only. So for a while we'll be sticking with the Zoom at home, and once we are able to safely and legally resume in-person meetings at Tommy's, we'll do that and hopefully have a semi-reasonable audio video setup prepared for the meeting, so that we can continue to invite everybody from all over theoretically all over the world. So, though I think so far, I think Paul Lasardi is takes the cake at Pennsylvania so far. So until then, we'll have to see what we come up with. So I don't have any other business for the meeting. Does anybody have anything else?
One thing I noted is that the computer electronics showcase in Vegas is supposedly on. So if anybody likes to go to CES, apparently it will be up and running at the usual time and place, but with social distancing.
Yeah, I know there's so usually right now is the E3 Expo for all the video game people, and right now I'm reading lots of articles about largely the frustrations that the journalists that normally go and report on E3 are having, trying to keep track of all the soup of different announcements that are going out. And at least in E3, when they had the expo, it was easier because you could go in and there was a schedule and everybody was on the schedule. Now everybody's just throwing announcements out left and right, and they're trying to keep up, and it's been a nightmare. So I think we'll take a brief intermission recess-ish, a couple minutes. Feel free to stay on and chat, and we'll turn it over to Mike for presentation. And we are recording. Oh, that's the other thing is, so I do have, there is a recording of last month's presentation. I have a couple of kind of cleaned it up a little bit for because we kind of started the recording at a odd spot before the presentation started, and in theory, on Monday, so a week from today, I will have the phone company is supposed to come out and hook up this fiber that they ran to my door, but didn't actually tell anybody. So hopefully by Monday, I will have the bandwidth to actually upload that video so that we can have the presentation available. And I will try and get this one put together and do the same thing as well. So if there's any questions, let me know, and we'll again let Mike take over when he wants to.
All right, folks, I have to sort of go back to work, so I'm going to have to drop off, but it was a pleasure attending.
Thanks for coming on.
Bet. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Bet.
I'll also be leaving. I have another meeting I have to go to.
All right. It's good seeing you, Larry. I'll have
Good
to
seeing you too,
catch
Anthony.
up.
Bye.
Take a quick bio break and I'll be right back.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's on that. I've been kind of remiss on going back and visiting my Google's group, and I had several people. I think I had 3 or 4 people that were queued up waiting on approvals to get into the Google group. So if anybody was affected on that, my apologies. I'll try and do a little bit better on trying to get back and revisiting that spot there on the group there to make sure everybody gets voted into this into the Google group there area. Another little bit of information is that while I've been going through the meeting, I kind of like this because I've been able to sit here and work stations on FT8 on 6 meters and 10 meters. So nothing very spectacular, but kind of interesting. Today, 6 meters has been kind of opened mostly through the day. And this evening, 6 meters opened up going into Japan. And that was a real treat. And there was just a ton of people just piling in on 6 meters, beating the heck out of that. And actually right now, 6 meters, let's see, I think over here on the West Coast, there's only a few stations that I can actually get into. But over on the East Coast on 6 meters is just alive, just crazy all the contacts. So there's stuff going on. 10 meters is still open at this point in time this evening, but it's only going north and south, nothing east and west on it. So, and again, I've had an absolute ball on this last month on 20 meters working using FT4. If anybody has had an opportunity to, or not had an opportunity to use FT4, it's really interesting. It moves along really, really quick. There's no reading email in between doing computer clicks. You got to be Johnny on the spot and keep up with all the traffic and everything that's going on. But it seems like, I guess what I'm finding is that on FT4, it's more the hardcore people. There's like 3 dB worth of difference in signal strength, which is not much at all. FT4 is a little bit weaker, but it seems like there's more hardcore people hanging out there, and it's really amazing all the contacts you can make in a very short amount of time. In fact, in 40 minutes on FT4, I had 3 pages of contacts that I made in 40 minutes. 3 pages of contacts that went into my log there. Pretty darn neat the way all of that stuff works.